What's up, everybody? Happy Wednesday night to you. Thought we'd change it up this week like I've been talking about, giving some of the evening folks a chance to hop on in here and see if they've got any questions about the Green Bay Packers. But while we do that, I do have just a couple little clarifications, news tidbits for you, etc., etc. So we'll see how many people turn out, see if this time slot works for folks, but I at least wanted to offer that chance. So topic number one, if you didn't see the news yet, the Packers did indeed make a roster move today. They released kicker Jack Podlesy, the former Georgia Bulldog guy, spent some time with the Minnesota Vikings, spent some time with the Green Bay Packers, but no longer as he's been formally released. Now, this isn't shocking for a couple different reasons. One, of the three kickers on the roster between the incumbent Carlson, the veteran Greg Joseph, and then Podlesy, it's fairly realistic that Podlesy was considered the long shot of the three per their stats over the course of their careers, dating back to college for Podlesy. He pretty frequently was the one that the farther out you go, the more inaccurate it would get. He also was the best on extra points with that size point. So it looked like he was going to be a long shot. And now, indeed, he is not going to get the position. So what that means ultimately is the Packers have released him. They now have 2 open spots on their roster. Stands at 89 of a possible 91. And I've gotten some questions recently about the status of Adumagu, the Packers IPP player, how long that exemption lasts. And I actually found some sources that I'll read for you in just a second, kind of deciphering what the NFL says about how long the exemption lasts, when it can be utilized, etc., etc. The other thing that's meaningful for Podlesy's release, or maybe why we're seeing it occurring before training camp, is ultimately there are only so many kicks to go around in training camp. Remember, that was part of the rationale that Gutekunst and company gave last year for not bringing in another kicker to compete with Carlson in the first place, was because they wanted the rookie kicker to get as many reps as he possibly could. Well, now in year 2, in a full-blown competition with Greg Joseph, again, there's only so many kicks to go around, so keep the 2 that you're more confident are going to the battle. Maybe they add a third one yet. Maybe they just knew Podlesy wasn't going to be the guy. Regardless, as of right now, 2 kickers on the roster. So getting back to what I was talking about with the roster exemptions for Adumagu, because they do have 2 open roster spots now that can be filled pre-training camp beginning on Monday, July 22nd. Keep in mind that the addition of Adumagu on the roster, they get 91 guys on their offseason roster, not just 90. And then in season, their practice squad can be 17, not 16. One of the things that changed for the 2024 season is now, rather than just some teams having access to an IPP player, now it's everyone. All 32 teams can add one and get that practice squad exemption. So some clarity here. I wanted to read this for you. This is from Football Operations, the actual NFL site. And it says, beginning in 2024, the practice squad will expand to 17 players for all 32 clubs if one player is a qualifying international player. A qualifying international player is a person whose citizenship and principal place of residence is outside the United States and Canada and who has a maximum of 2 years of United States high school experience. In addition, an international player must satisfy all NFL player eligibility rules and have been eligible for a prior NFL draft. Clubs may choose to sign players identified through the NFL's IPP program or can choose to independently scout for international talent. Now, this is where it gets to the meaty expansion stuff. Under the new rules, a participating club is permitted to elevate its international practice squad player to its active roster a maximum of 3 times throughout the season, just like we see with typical practice squad players. IPP players can now be elevated, increasing the flexibility for clubs and leverage through the additional player while creating more opportunity for IPP players to develop and play the league. Each club will also receive 1 training camp roster exemption for a qualifying player. That's what bumps it up to 91. Now, the only answer, or the only question that I cannot find anywhere when attempting to research this today, was how long that lasts. I think it appears from all of the rules that I found from the NFL itself and their listings, it seems like it's in perpetuity, because now there's even rules about being able to have several veterans, guys, it doesn't matter how many seasons they've accrued, on your practice squad. You can have up to 6 of them. So it looks as though as long as Adumagu sticks around in Green Bay, as long as they want to keep him around, they can just keep that exemption rolling in perpetuity. If there's anything different out there, I'd love to know it. But that's coming straight from the field operations of the NFL portion of the website. So that's what we got. What's up to a couple folks out there? Captain Campbell's actually able to join us this evening. What's up, my friend? Saying, ladies and gentlemen, Carlson is the kicker. I don't believe Goody and Comp actually plan to change the position. I agree with them. Yeah, I do too, especially when you factor to the fact like Carlson, 3 years remaining on his deal, is younger. His rookie season, the back half of it was fairly disastrous in a number of different ways, but in total, the course of the entire season for Carlson is pretty on par with what Joseph has done throughout the course of his career. So if you're looking at ceilings, maybe Carlson's is higher. Take into account the contract status, the fact that he was a draft choice. He's younger than Joseph. Yeah, I think the incumbent does have that kicking job. Tyler, what's up, Tyler? Do you think the Packers keep all 3 quarterbacks, or does the loser of the backup competition get cut? I've gone back and forth on this a little bit. I have a really hard time believing that on the 53-man, they stick with all 3. Obviously, there is a ton of risk there for the Packers, because if Pratt, who had a great minicamp, if he can keep that going through training camp, and yet the Packers still want to hang on to Clifford, I would not be shocked at all to see Clifford or Pratt picked up on waivers to some other team to be their developmental quarterback, maybe a team that just straight up doesn't have one, right? Yet at the same time, the Packers for years generally only carry 2 quarterbacks on the 53. So I don't know. My official prediction is they still roll with 2. As of right now, I'm still going to give the nod to Clifford, and then they're going to hope to sneak Pratt through onto the practice squad. But if Pratt continues to show out, I wouldn't be shocked if you flip it. Either way, I'm just really hard-pressed to believe that they're going to keep all 3 quarterbacks, because then numbers at more fragile positions get really sketchy really fast. Don, what's up, Don? Hi, John. Will you be doing watch parties for preseason and family night? So, I haven't figured out every single detail yet. Probably not watch parties for preseason. Family night, I'm probably going to be in personal attendance at Lambeau. Maybe I'll go live from Lambeau and do a little Q&A during family night. I will see if I can pull that off. But probably not watch parties for preseason games. We'll probably stick to that for the regular season. Gives me a little more freedom to live during the preseason games than doing a watch party. So that's what I'm planning on. But good time to talk about it. If you haven't seen the announcements yet, training camp, I'm going to be there's 16 public practices. I'm going to be at the very least at 15 of them, and then go live immediately after and answer any question you got about any individual you got. And I'll probably do the same thing as I did last year, where you can submit requests pre-training camp, and I will keep my eye out for one individual dude for you and then report after camp. So make sure you check that out. Stick around in August. Good time. Joe, is this legit? Did I actually catch you live? You see, that's the hope of doing this later night one. I'm glad you're here, Joe. What's up? Brandy saying, in this new defense, are you considering Van Ness, Smith, Gary, and Enagbare as edge, and Brooks, Clark, Slayton, Wooden, Wyatt, and Cox as DL? So, okay. I guess the way that I split it now is still interior defensive line versus edge, right? And I think that that's what you're getting to. 4-3, technically you could use the nomenclature of D end versus DT. It's all the same thing, basically. In my way of thinking, and what I believe we have seen so far, is on the edge or defensive end, we're looking at Van Ness, Preston, Gary, Enagbare, and Brenton Cox Jr. falls in there as well. And then also you've got the others like Deslin Alexander, Keyshawn Banks. Anyone who was listed edge converts themselves to 4-3 D end now. As for defensive tackle or interior defensive line in the 4-3, there you're looking at Wooden, who with the added weight confirmed as much that he's going to be there. Clark, Slayton, Carl Brooks fits there really well. And then you also have Wyatt. So that's the way that I'm breaking it down. If you got to find a 6th defensive tackle, probably still slot Jonathan Ford into that spot. I think they wind up keeping 5 on the 53, but it would be of those 5. Brenton Cox Jr., I think, is the only one that I would question on your list there. He's an end in this defense for sure. Ed, what's up, Ed? I don't think either Clifford or Pratt could go on the practice squad without another team claiming them. Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. The only thing that really backs it up, right, is Pratt. In the case of Pratt, he slipped to the 7th round for a reason. Now, if he goes out in training camp and in preseason games and shows the league that that was a mistake, that he should have been a round 3 pick like a lot of people mocked him as, or a round 4, yeah, then I don't think he makes it onto the practice squad. I'm inclined to agree with you. Sean Clifford, kind of the same deal. Remember, like, Sean Clifford performed pretty well in the preseason last year. He was much more gunslinger than any of us really thought he was. If he does that again in training camp, probably the same deal. But if Clifford in the training camp and preseason games looks like he did in that last mini camp portion where he threw 4 picks, if that becomes a longer trend, then yeah, Pratt probably becomes the backup. Clifford probably slides to number 3 and may very well get cut and sneak onto the practice squad unless someone really thinks they can rehab him. So, yeah, it really, really depends on those preseason games and the look that the rest of the league gets at them. I don't love the chances of the Packers maintaining all 3, but Pratt slipped for a reason, and Clifford, who knows what the future holds for him. Brandy, do you see the Packers keeping 6 wide receivers this year? Samori Toure make the cut. Toure, no. I will start with that. I think Toure has been passed up, just like we saw last season. I think others have just moved right past him on the depth chart, and now you've got added competition in there too with Hicks and Stanley. The more numbers in that room, the worse it is for Toure. Also, too, Toure just doesn't do anything that like the other receivers can't do. So in terms of the rest of the wide receiver crew, I do think they keep 6. I think we're realistically looking at Malik Heath as wide receiver 6. He's the one that could be edged out. I think Melton is pretty gosh darn safe at this point. And then of course you've got Wicks, Reed, Dobbs, Watson. So it's like you got 5 pretty well locked in. 6 they're gonna keep, but is it gonna be Heath? Does Hicks upend him? Give the nod to Heath for now, but we'll see once we get into games. Brandy saying, do you think there's enough competition at tight end? Ultimately, yes, for competition purposes. I'm a little leery of the overall tight end depth chart. Look, you got Musgrave and Kraft. They're terrific. I don't think that they need competition necessarily, right? But then you've got Sims and Tyler Davis coming off of an ACL injury. Who knows how many they're intending on keeping at this juncture? I could see them going with 3 or keeping all 4 of those guys. And then really you've only got Messiah Swinson, Joel Wilson, like bottom, like a clear cut behind the other 4. I think they're going to wind up like trying to keep all 4 tight ends. It's just, what are the roles for Sims and Davis? Do they have enough blocking in the tight end room? That's a little bit of a question because they haven't added any Mercedes Lewis type since he's been let go. So we'll see about that one for sure. Tyler, what's your Jordan Love contract prediction? I think it ends up at 5 years, $285. All right, I'm live, so I gotta do this. 25. Okay. Well, 285. I mean, that would put him. That would break it, wouldn't it? See, you're gonna make me break out the calculator. I can't do it in my head like this. You put me under pressure, Tyler. Yeah, it would be 57. So he'd up the annual average by $2 million a year over Lawrence and Burrow. Okay, I'll say this. If Love edges out Burrow and Lawrence, I don't think it's going to be by much. I think it'll be like 55.5 or something like that. My ultimate prediction is I wouldn't be shocked if he gets 55 and matches. I would be a little surprised if the Packers like moved him up to highest paid player in the NFL. Realistically, I think this falls in somewhere 53, 54. It's going to be real close. And if he tops it, you're splitting hairs by like $1 million. So I think like give him, I think 5 years is a good number. And let's do 54 per with half of the full contract valuation guaranteed, which is already more than the Packers like to do from a contract standpoint. So let's go there, Tyler. 5 years, 54 per, just under Burrow Lawrence. If it winds up above, yeah, I won't be shocked. I just don't think the Packers want to. Chad, I'm intrigued to see how Valentine and Stokes battle out the cornerback 2 role. I wouldn't be surprised to see Valentine win, nor would I. The kind of the dichotomy of quotes from LaFleur so far on both Valentine and Stokes has been very interesting to track because he's been incredibly complimentary of both individuals. So that may be one, like we may want to declare an outright guaranteed starter, right? Maybe the Packers approach that one with kind of like a rotational basis, and we're not going to see some clear-cut cornerback 2 one over the other one. Maybe they'll do a little bit more matchup, a little bit more scheme dependent for what Hafley wants to call in a given week. But either way, like that's one of the ones that I'm most excited to watch hash out. I think it's one of the few battles on this team that is a true battle for roster spots, cornerback wide, and then also like depth chart standing. That one's going to be a lot of fun, but I wouldn't be shocked either way. Joseph, might we try to sneak Henry Pearson back to the practice squad if Tyler Davis is healthy by game 1? Yes, I feel very confident in that. If Henry Pearson winds up not making the 53, which he does stand a chance to do, like let's keep that in mind, especially if they want to keep a dedicated H-back, that's Henry Pearson all day. If they don't want to, though, or think that Sims, Davis, Dillon, et cetera, can fill the capacities of the role, then yeah, I'm very confident they try to get Pearson back on the practice squad for sure. Dan, are you confident A.J. Dillon makes the team? I'm not so sure. Do you think anyone would be interested in trading for A.J. draft capital? No. To answer the back part of that first, no, not really. I mean, maybe they could get some team to do like a day 3 pick, but with the contract that they signed Dillon to, and Dillon pretty openly saying, not that he took a huge pay cut, but like he did take a little less to stay in Green Bay. I don't think Green Bay is going to want to do that to him, honestly. Like if they're going to move on from A.J. Dillon, they'd probably just release him and give him his choice of teams. At this point, though, I am pretty secure in A.J. Dillon making the roster, especially as we've seen the personal improvements from Dillon thus far. He is looking leaner, his body, his overall physique looking more balanced for sure. Like the biceps are now equal to the thighs. So plus just how they've spoken about how confident they are in his ability. Plus keep in mind, out of Josh Jacobs, Marshawn Lloyd, and A.J. Dillon is probably the best pass blocker of the 3 in pass pro. Like Jacobs is fine there. Dillon's pretty dang good at it. Marshawn Lloyd, he gets the work in progress tag from a pass pro perspective. So that really is going pretty strongly in Dillon's favor. Pair that with the fact that he knows the offense a lot more than Jacobs and Lloyd. Yeah, I really like his chances. Emmanuel Wilson would have to ball the freak out in practice squad and show them that he is just straight up a superior running back to beat out A.J. Dillon at this point. So, yeah, that's the way I got to lean. I think Dillon sticks around this year. Captain Gebbles, Anthony Johnson Jr. by week 8 is safety to you. Woo! By week 8. All right, so you got McKinney. Like he's your unquestioned number 1, right? You got Bullard, who I think is going to be safety 2, although in like if they do a big dime or even big nickel, wouldn't be shocked to see him slide into the slot a bit. You got Williams, the rookie from Oregon, who I think is going to perform a lot better than a lot of people expect. I think he's going to be a very nice run support safety. And then you got Oladapo, who I love. Going to be really interesting to see how it fits in the defense too once he actually can play. Give me safety 4 by week 8. And I say that because let's go McKinney above him, Bullard above him, Williams above him, and then Anthony Johnson Jr. and Oladapo kind of back there as teamers, depth safety. Keep in mind too, like you do have to split a little bit of the responsibilities at safety because while they want them interchangeable, there is still one that's going to be more the post safety or center fielder type, and then one more that's going to be a little bit more box safety. Like something is going to change a little bit there. So like Anthony Johnson Jr. will be higher up on the center fielder side, the post safety side. Oladapo probably higher up on the box safety side. So overall safety 4, but I think those are your 5 safeties for sure. Brandon, Eric Wilson gets pushed by Hopper on special teams. Maybe a little. I think they both wind up playing teams. I think Eric Wilson still makes the roster. I think they both wind up playing teams. So like pushed? No, not really. I think they're both going to be there. They'll be peers in that regard. Eric Wilson's just too dang good at special teams. Joseph, I've seen some suggest Love's agent might ask to go 3 years with a higher percentage guaranteed. That way he gets the next contract negotiation faster. Would Russ Ball go for that? Probably not, because part of the reason for the Packers to lock in Love right now and not wait until next offseason and toy with the franchise tag or anything is to lock him in and get ahead of an elevating quarterback market, right? I'm sure Jordan Love's agent would love to do just a 3-year deal and have him hit free agency again at 28, 29, depending on how it broke down. The Packers don't want that, though. A compromise there could be, rather than adding 5 new years to the contract, add 4 new years to the contract so that Love is locked in for a total of 5 years, thus hitting free agency at like age 30 again. I think that that's the compromise that may be hashed out between the two parties. But yeah, I'm sure Love's agent would love a shorter term deal with more guaranteed. Chad, how do you feel about Meyers? I don't think he's bad as a lot of fans make him out to be. He's had his moments, sure, but this past year he was solid, especially with snaps and exchanges. Yeah, especially given all the training camp panic about Meyers and Love not being on the same page for a number of snaps. Like, remember that all last year? Meyers had like 5 Biff snaps, and it was pretty brutal there for a bit. I would agree that I think his reputation with a lot of the fandom is worse than his play. I would go that far. However, I do think that he also is, I don't want to say fairly easily, but certainly an upgradable piece on the offensive line. So I do think realistically this is Meyers' last year. It's last year's contract. I think he will be the starting center this year. And then I wouldn't be shocked if he doesn't return and the Packers move in another direction. That really would not surprise me at all. Because yeah, I think he's better than a lot of fans think, or his reputation may say, let's say that. But he's still going to be upgraded upon. For sure. Brandy, Travis Glover takes Caleb Jones' spot, Newman, or practice squad. Personally, I wouldn't be surprised at all to see Travis Glover make the practice squad this year. I know a while back I did like a way too early, this was right after the draft, a 53-man roster prediction. And in that one, I said Donovan Jennings, the UDFA, who got $100,000 guaranteed as a signing bonus from the Packers, who they love and is an interior lineman. I think he stands a better chance to make the 53 than Travis Glover, who is a very raw, big-bodied prospect, especially holding him out at tackle. So, and plus, Gutekunst's got like kind of a history. Keep in mind, like Simon Stepaniak, yeah, there was some injury stuff there, but Cole Van Lanen, there have been day 3 offensive linemen who have been stashed on the practice squad for a year before eventually making it in year 2. Would not be shocked at all if Travis Glover is cut this year, put on the practice squad as a development, and then with kept in mind for next year. That's my prediction. Caleb Jones, we'll see. Let's see, overall tackles. Caleb Jones might make it one more year, but I'm putting him in the very firm might category. Royce Newman. Royce might make it, which would be to the chagrin of many a Packer fan, myself included. I mean, the Packers saved $3 million by letting him go, but at the same time, in terms of depth on the interior, he's the most experienced. They gave him some run with the ones when the rookies were busy during minicamp. Like, they're giving him a fair shot at things. I wouldn't be shocked if he still sticks around. But let's say the smarter money would be on him not making it. David, hey, John. What's up, Dave? Scott, hi, John. Hello, Scott. Tyler, I am puzzled with Meyers as to why the Packers aren't cross-training him like they do with every other lineman. Maybe he'd be a solid guard. We'll never know. I don't get why he's only a center right now. You know, I've wondered the same thing. And in my opinion, the thinking here is center, while it's not one of the more physically grueling spots on the line, while it's not necessarily the toughest from a blocking standpoint assignment, mentally speaking, it is certainly amongst the toughest on the offensive line. And Meyers, they've never said it, but from what they've alluded to, because the last year they've really complimented his leadership and his line calls. And they never said that was a struggle for him, but we certainly didn't hear those compliments in the first 2 years of Josh Meyers' career. So it kind of leads me to believe that he's made a lot of improvements in the line calls portion of that job. And maybe they just want him to continue to focus on that. Or maybe, from what we know of his body size, given his RAS when he was drafted, etc., like he could play guard, but maybe they don't feel as though his physique is good for the guard position. It's a question I've wondered before too. I think it's got to come down to the line call thing, the improvement that he's made there, and they just don't want to mess with that. Just leave him one tracked, and then maybe that field they can get the best results from him. I got to go with that. Joseph saying Mike McCarthy giving UFL Jonathan Garvin a workout. Yeah, okay. I don't. Garvin would have been, off the top of my head, I think it was a 2019 draft choice, so McCarthy would have been out. So, yeah, so like there's no real connection there besides maybe McCarthy talked to a couple Packer people that have been employed for a number of years and were there with McCarthy just to get their opinion. Garvin ultimately, like, yeah, he was a 7th round pick for the Packers years ago, but he just never seemed to really get it together. And then they tried some position switches with him, and it just felt like they want to give him a chance, and it just never worked. And then there were, like, this is just speculation, rumor type stuff about like work ethic with him, and his time in Green Bay was awfully finished by the end of it for sure. Chad saying, well, my roster's busted. Podlesy gets released. You had Podlesy making it? Didn't see that one coming. In all seriousness, who would be your 3 inside linebackers as of right now when Hafley runs a true 4-3? Yeah, very important stipulation there on the end. So in their true base 4-3, I think your 3 linebackers right now are Quay Walker, Edgerrin Cooper, Isaiah McDuffie. I think those are your starting 3. The next tier, the next man up, would be Eric Wilson, who does have quite a bit of experience at a 4-3, even started a year in a 4-3 for Minnesota years ago. I think it was 2020. And then Hopper, like the other rookie, the 3rd round rookie for the Packers. I think that those are your next wave, next men up at linebacker. I think those ultimately are the 5 that make the team as well. But your starting 3 for the 4-3, Walker, Cooper, McDuffie, for sure. Tyler, is Jordan Morgan a starter week 1? If so, where do you think? What's your projected starting 5? So for me, for my taste right now, I'm putting Jordan Morgan at right guard, and I am starting him week 1. Maybe there's a sliver of possibility that the Packers want to keep the rotation going with Sean Ryan, and we see Morgan and Ryan do some rotating like John Runyon Jr. and Sean Ryan last year at right guard. But I think what eventually is going to settle itself out is that the best 5 that they can create would go Rasheed Walker left tackle, Elton Jenkins left guard, center Josh Meyers, right guard Jordan Morgan, right tackle Zach Tom. That's like the most complete 5 that they can do. Plus Morgan as a rookie, then you're giving him to the least responsible offensive line spot, if you want to call it that. I think the long-term vision is start Morgan at right guard year 1, year 2, then he's out at the tackle spot. So maybe then you kick Tom in for his Hall of Fame arc at center, what have you, after Meyers departs. That's the way that I would look at it from a roster construction standpoint. I do think almost no matter what, though, he winds up being one of the best 5. And if it's not week 1 that he's starting, it's pretty soon thereafter. Joseph, our man Wes Hod, says he has seen Ben Simmons running more long routes while Kraft is recovering. Sims is one of my sneaky mini breakout candidates. Yeah, I know you're really high on Sims. Going to be really interesting to see the role that they carve out for him, certainly. And interesting, too, that you note that running more long routes while Kraft is out. Kraft, when both Musgrave and Kraft were healthy, Kraft was more so the underneath route guy as opposed to Musgrave, who was attacking the seams and everything like that downfield. So, I mean, like, ultimately, yeah, I could see Sims breaking out, but he is very definitively behind Musgrave and Kraft on the depth chart. I think Sims gets on the field for some more, let's say Tyler Davis is like the specialty guy. I could see that happening for sure. Sims just kind of getting in there when Musgrave and Kraft need themselves a break. But, a mini breakout? Sure, I could get with that. Certainly he could be one that's going to make some plays in training camp that's going to make us go, ooh, I can see that for sure. All right, everybody, I do believe I'm all caught up in the comments. I'll hang out for just 1 second more, see if anyone's going to get any in the sneak the buzzer, but I think I got them. Oh, hey, there we go. Brandy, how is Monk getting along? Have not heard anything. It's been real quiet about Jacob Monk, right? And I know that there was some talk about how, like, Monk may compete with Meyers for starting center right away this year. And, like, I've seen some people try to, I don't know, like, Monk was a day 3 pick for a reason. I do really like Monk, but let's be honest about the fact that there is work to do there for sure. I like him more as a, like, he's going to plug in. I think he could play now, like, well enough right now. Let's say it this way. Glover, body type, everything, raw, long-term project. Monk, fairly close to his ceiling, serviceable interior line with maybe a hope for a starting role down the line, right? Like, that's how I kind of differentiate between those two. I have heard through minicamp that he looked like a very typical rookie, right? Steep learning curve, lots of things going on. Got beat occasionally, not all that often, but occasionally by quicker pass rushers. So very rookie-like from everything I've heard at this point, Brandy. Thanks, John. Oh, of course, Dan. Scott saying we should go for all 2s this year. All 2s. Oh, like 2-point convert? Scott. Although I think there are some advanced stats that say you should. Jake, what's up, Jake? You think Green Bay's D will look more like GB's D in the 90s? Who would fill the Butler role? So to answer the first part first, yes, I do. I think it's going to look, I don't want to say very similar, because 90s is obviously a large swath of time. Also, the 90s defense it did blitz. I think Hafley may blitz more than what we saw a lot of the 90s rates do under Fritz Schirmer. Or at least I should say, like, be more aggressive in the blitz itself. Maybe that's a better way to say it. Who would fill the Butler role? I mean, that's got to be McKinney, right? Like, Butler encompassed the guy who you could send out into center field, send him deep, and he could make a play on the ball. He also is the guy that if you're going to blitz a safety, it's probably going to be Butler, right? Eugene Robinson was more of a true center fielder. Butler was kind of everything. I don't know as if it's going to be that clean cut this year. So, like, McKinney fills the Butler role. Most like Butler, like in terms of just like able to play style, I'll go with Oladapo, but obviously worlds behind an NFL Hall of Famer. Joseph saying real quiet on the Luke Tenuta front too. Yeah, I haven't heard anything like at all about Luke Tenuta and where he may be in. So yeah, real quiet. Same thing with Caleb Jones. And that's to be expected. I mean, like, keep in mind, the only ones that are at minicamp live are credentialed reporters. And plus, offensive line isn't something you really report on right now because they're not even wearing pads. Like, literally what happens at minicamp right now for offensive linemen is they're in shorts and too tight jersey on some of them. And they basically get into the offensive formation. Love snaps the ball. And then oftentimes the offensive linemen just stand up. You're going to occupy space. Or maybe they engage a little with the D lineman, but it's never that much because no one's wearing pads, no one's getting protection, and then the D line does some moves, but not, it's just not full, right? It's not, an offensive line is nearly impossible to grade or to assess when they're not actually hitting anybody. You know, D linemen, you can at least see the moves. How quick is a guy's swim move? Like, is the spin impressive? O lineman, did he stop a dude who wasn't giving his all in the moves? Like, it's not a good way to grade. So we'll hear way more O-line talk once we actually get to camp, and I'll be happy to cover that for you for sure. Ed, thanks, John. Good to get in on a live chat. Yeah, thanks, everybody. This was great. Like, crap, I might have to do more late night LTV for sure. Oh, the family's going to love that. All right, so thanks, everybody. It is time to jump on out of here. I got a family to go attend to, but thanks, everybody, for hopping in. Really means a lot. Be on the lookout. Maybe we'll do some more late night lives, but very sincerely, check out stuff. I know it's slow. I know it's the off season right now. Check out stuff until we get to camp. I am going to take a week off soon, just as a week to like, reassess everything, get everything ready like most creators do before camp. And then, boy, you hit the ground running at camp, when I just very much follow the Packers schedule. So check out that stuff until I take that week, and then it's camp. We're off and running. It's almost here, everybody. So thank you, everybody. Oh, and Joseph, Captain Kebbles, like the video, everyone. Yes, like the video, everyone. Joseph saying, send our greetings to Claudia. Absolutely will. I know it's been a couple of weeks since she's been here. You may, depending on how her work schedule pans out, you may see her on Friday. We might do a joint video together. Of course, it'll be recorded, but you might see her again soon. So, all right, everybody, it is time for me to jump on out of here. Go have a wonderful Wednesday. I'll see you on Friday. And as always, Pack Go.